won't interrupt the story. I'm just going to leave the guys just have a chat in the live, and I'm going to start. So, I hadn't put it earlier on, but I've obviously renamed this one Tik Tok Momster. I thought I'd change the name of it slightly. So it's Tik Tok Momster, the heartbreaking Kaylee-Jayde pre-story. Now, if you haven't heard this one, it is a child. Just letting you all know now. Oh my God, look at the state of it. It is a child. Now we know, obviously, these are quite hard. So if it's too much, I completely understand. But I'm just giving you that warning now. So Kaylee-Jayde Priest was born on the 31st of January 2017 in Birmingham, the UK. Her mum, I'm gonna get my fingers out. They're coming out. Her mum, Nicola Priest. We don't know her dad. We just don't know. I've searched everywhere. I can't find this little girl's dad. Nicola had Kaylee at 19. But she did have a stepdad for a while. Now his name's Dan Gregory. He was 22, and he doted on Kaylee. Absolutely doted on her. He looked after her from very, very early on. And he seemed to be the one that basically gave her all the love and attention that a little child would that you would expect a little child to get. I'm just going to say that. Now, Kaylee herself, oh God, what can I say? Just a gorgeous little girl, very cute, petite little thing, always happy, rarely cried, it was said. Just a bundle of fun. She just looked adorable. She really did. Now, when Kaylee was about 2, she then has, she doesn't. Nicola goes on to have a little boy, which would be Kaylee's little brother. Again, I'm not going to talk about him too much other than to mention that, just so you're aware of that there is a little brother, but I'm not really going to talk about him too much. Now, with regards to Kaylee, Dan would notice that Kaylee would have bruises on her as she was going from baby into infant into toddler. And we know toddlers do get bruises. They're always falling, especially as soon as they start walking. They're like every which way but loose, aren't they? They're just like wobbling everywhere, and they do hurt themselves. But although Dan put it down to just a toddler hurting themselves, tripping over and so on, Dan's mum, Debbie, didn't. Sorry, no, ignore me. Ignore the name Debbie, please. Ignore the name Debbie. I don't know why I've just said that. Debbie is actually Nicola's mum, okay, which would be Kaylee's grandmother on her mum's side. So ignore that. Ever so sorry. Now, Dan, like I said, thought these bruises on Kaylee were normal, but his mum didn't. Now, although he was only Kaylee's stepdad, I shouldn't say that. He was obviously more than a dad than her biological dad, whoever he may be. And just played the mum as well, from what I found out. Now, he just thought she was hurting herself as a toddler would, as I've said. His mum didn't think so. you know, she didn't buy that these were just toddler bruises. She was very suspicious of where these markings were coming from on this little girl. Okay. Now we get to July 2019. All right. Now Nicola and Dan, Kaylee and her baby brother, okay, they all move into a 2-bed flat in Kingshurst, which is in Solihull of the UK. It's like a high-rise building. You can see it online, okay. They all move into there together, but not for long, all right. While they're there, Kaylee does attend sort of a playgroup / nursery, but her attendance is very hit and miss. It seemed to be if Dan would take her, because Nicola just really couldn't be bothered half the time. So it was said that she didn't really go very often. Now, about 6 months after moving in there, Nicola and Dan break up, which it's really, really sad. It's really, really sad for Kaylee, this is. It really was, because he really cared for this little girl. He genuinely did, even though she wasn't his biological child. Everywhere I've looked, it seemed that he had a lot of time for her, and he doted on her. That's what I've heard about him, but they break up. Kaylee is about 3 at this time. Alright. Now, there is a babysitter that looks after Kaylee around this time. Now, this babysitter's about 17 years of age, so a friend of Nicola's. She calls her Nikki. I'm still going to call her Nicola because that's where I see her name everywhere else, but apparently this babysitter calls her Nikki. Alright, and she would say that Nikki just wasn't good with Kaylee at all. She was vile to her, in fact. She would talk to her horribly, calling her vile names. She witnessed her once when little Kaylee had asked for food. She slapped her with the back of her hand around her head. She pulled her by her hair. This babysitter said that she'd wanted to take Kaylee away. You know, she'd been there for a few hours and she'd offered to take her back to her house, and Nicola wouldn't allow this to happen, and she kind of dragged Kaylee into the bedroom by her hair and slammed the door. This was sort of where Kaylee's life was going, and it goes back to Dan's mum, who, whereas Dan believed that these bruises could possibly just be a clumsy toddler, his mum she was suspicious, and she had every right to be, because we know once Dan was out of the flat and it was just Nicola looking after Kaylee, no patience whatsoever, no time for this child. The babysitter said she overheard her saying, I wish I'd never had you. You know, you're a brat. Just vile, just a vile way to talk about your little girl. She's 3. She's 3 years old. What? And that alone, let alone how hands-on she was with her. Just, look, who backhands a 3-year-old? Oh, God. Now, we get to the end of March 2020. Now, we know what that meant, didn't we? We know where this brought us in the entire world. Now, at this point, Nicola, she's 22, and she starts seeing a 22-year-old lad called Callum Redfern, all right? And around this point, it's proving that she puts a lot of time into Callum, a lot of time. But she also puts a lot of time into her friends. Let me just describe Nicola to you, because I'm talking about this girl and I'm not really putting any description of her. She just, ugh, God. Is that the right description for a person? Ugh. She just looks disgusting. Oh, God. Just go and have a look at her and just, well, wait until I finish the story and then go and have a look at this girl and you will see why I'm just so, just disgusted by her. Now, like I say, she's falling for Callum, hook, line and sinker very quickly. She dotes on her friends. She had a friend that was having a hard time and she was like, I'll stay up all night. I'll stay up and talk on the phone with you all night. Sounded like an amazing friend. Just a really, really bad mum. So Nicola and Callum get serious really quickly, really quickly. Wow. Hang on a minute. Let me bring that back. Nicola gets serious very quickly. Callum not so much. Callum not so much. He's, by April 2020, although he's spending a lot of time with Kaylee and Nicola, she wants him to move in and he doesn't want to move in. He's not really interested. It's from very early on looking into this story, it was quite obvious this guy was using this girl and she was allowing herself to be used more to the point, but he didn't really want to be with, to be a family. He didn't want a child that wasn't his, two children that weren't his, but because little Kaylee was a toddler, she was a 3-year-old. If you've ever been around a 3-year-old, they're a whirlwind. They are a handful because they're getting their balances, they're learning the world, they want to be everywhere at all times and into everything at all times. We know that. And he didn't really want any part of that. So the pair would have very, very loud alcohol-fueled parties going on till the early hours of the morning. And this was a regular occurrence. This is supposed to be lockdown. What, did we not have lockdown in Solihull? How did this happen? Now, like I said, Nicola would ask him to move in, but he wasn't interested in being a family. He's a young 22-year-old guy. He wanted no part of it. He wanted what he could get out of Nicola, but he didn't want anything more than that. Now, Nicola had thrown herself into this relationship, as I'm putting across, but she completely neglected. If she ever showed any duties as being a mum, well, it was completely neglected now. Little Kaylee was completely pushed to the back of the line now, behind Callum and behind her friends and behind herself. Then maybe Kaylee and her brother come up the back. But, who knows if they even made it that near to the back of the queue. Now, around this time, the neighbours not only could hear these loud alcohol and drug-fueled parties, they began to hear Kaylee being shouted at more and more often. Okay, one that stood out to me now, I heard a lot of insults that she threw at this little girl, but she used to call her a rat. A rat. Who calls their child of any age a rat? But a 3-year-old? You calling a 3-year-old a rat? Ugh. Now, there was a friend of Callum's who joined the three of them at an arcade once. I believe his name's Matthew. And he said when they'd got there, Callum had actually gave Kaylee some money just to go and spend it in the arcade. I'd like to, if I'd have heard that about anyone else, I'd be like, well, that's nice. He's giving her a couple of quid to go and, go and play. I don't think that's what it was. I think it was just to get her, you go over there, stay away from me, but apparently, very quickly, Kaylee had come back, and before you know, he's threatening to shove a bar of soap down her throat. You know, so it's the start of him jumping on the bandwagon. You know, if a mum talks about her, calls her a rat, pulls her by her hair, backhands her, then this lad who really doesn't want any part of being a family, he's going to be like, oh, well, all bets are off then, let's go. You know, that's all I can think. And a 22 or not, a normal guy of 22 would be like, oh, you're a monster, and I'm going to try and get this child away from you. But no, he's just like, oh, okay, is this what we do with a 3-year-old then? Let me join in. So we get to the 14th of July 2020. Now, Nicola had received her universal credit benefit, okay? If you're watching anywhere else in the world, universal credit, it is just like a government benefit that if you're not working or you might be sick, or, you know, it's a benefit from that's paid by the government. And she received her universal credit. She gives £900, because obviously universal credit you get in one lump sum. So she gives £900 of it to Callum so he can go and get himself a car. BMW, apparently. I don't know what BMW you can get for £900, but apparently, there you go. Now, that's supposed to be for food, electric, gas, clothing, toiletries. That's supposed to be to get you through an entire month. And she's just like, here you go, love me. And hands it over to him. And it said that, and this is where you'll see the difference between the two of them. So she's God knows what she was getting, but £900, that sounds quite a lot, no? And she's handing that over to him, and now you'll see the difference in the relationship, because he takes that money, knowing she's a single mum with 2 young children. He takes it, goes and buys said car. The car was only, I've heard 600 and I've heard 650, but it weren't £900. And the friend who went with him to go and buy the car sees that he only hands over, let's just even say 650, and he pockets the rest. It just gives you a little insight into that relationship, okay? And he just kind of so, don't say anything. And the real kicker about it is about a week later, he's driving around in said car with no insurance, gets pulled by the police, the car gets seized and crushed within a week of him buying it. And little Kaylee and her little brother now have nothing. Their mum has nothing to be able to provide for them for a month. We get to the 24th of July 2020. Now, you remember I said she's 3. Here's a couple of the texts between Nicola and Callum. All right. 24th of July. Remember, they haven't been together long. They've only been together since March. He's not Kaylee's dad. He's not the little fella's dad. He's not living with them. Here's a couple of the text messages between them. Okay. So, this is from Callum. Oh, no, sorry. This is from Nicola. This is from Mum. This is. I'm going to kill her because she keeps leaving the living room or going in the kitchen. I've hit her and I will smack her because she's just shitting a nappy. What? Say it again? That's how you're talking about your child to a fella that really not really giving you the time of day, and that's the conversation you're having. He turned round. Do you want to hear his reply? Good. Give her one from me. Give her one from me. Nicola. I will, babe. Love you. 27th of July 2020. We have another text exchange. This is Callum to Nicola. Keep that little brat out of my way. I'm sick of your spunking daughter. I'll just emphasise, I know I've probably said it 5 or 6 times. She's 3. They're talking about a 3-year-old baby. Really? Okay. Another witness said that the flat was a hole. As aren't they always in these stories? Just a hole. Kaylee would ask for food. She got a slap across the head from Nicola. And she said, while this witness was there and seen her, again, backhand her daughter for asking for food. Nicola's turned round to this witness, we don't know the name of this one, and basically says, look, I haven't got any food for her anyway. And the witness ends up giving Kaylee some crisps. Some crisps. I mean, this little girl by this time would have been able to, she would know how vile her own mum is. She would have a fear of her mum. So for her to have approached to ask for food, she would have been nervous doing that anyway. And what does she get? She gets a backhand again. And then mum's friend happens to just have a packet of crisps on her and gives her a bag of crisps. Oh, God. Nicola was seen often slapping Kaylee. This wasn't a hidden child abuse story. This wasn't hidden away from everyone. I wouldn't say she was proud of what... I don't think it was a sense of pride of what she was doing to her daughter. She just didn't care. She just didn't care. So, what you gonna do? Really? Who you gonna tell? She would call her, like I say, vile names. Most of all, she'd ignore her. She'd just ignore her. There was like a real emotional neglect of this child. Like, she'd slap her and then go straight back to looking at her phone or talking to someone else. There was a real emotional neglect of this little girl as well, which I've done stories and it said that, you know, neglect in itself sometimes can be even worse than sort of physical abuse and mental abuse. Neglect is something that children, it said that they really struggle to come back from. Okay, and this child, she was getting every single abuse you can list off. Okay, not she wasn't sex. There was no SA that I know of. There was none of that. Sorry, I went off on a tangent then. So no, there wasn't that. Okay, but it was everything else. But around now, here's Kaylee's bedroom. Let me tell you about this little girl's bedroom. Now, little girl, 3 years old, you can imagine. All right, if you haven't got a lot of money, but you would imagine even she'd have a little bed, maybe a nice quilt cover with a matching pillowcase, maybe. You know, maybe a light bulb. Maybe a light bulb in there, you know, because we know little kids can be scared of the dark. You know, maybe a bit of carpet. Maybe a curtain. No, she didn't have any of that. Nothing. Just bare floorboards. Nothing up at the windows. Not even a light bulb in this little girl's bedroom. Dirty mattress, dirty sheets. Just, oh, it's just such a shame. But at this time, Nicola, she discovered the TikTok. She discovered the TikTok she had. And she starts to become obsessed with making TikToks. Because what I'll say about Nicola, from what I can gather, she considers herself very good looking. She thought she was very good looking, you could tell. And she'd be there, giving it 10, giving herself, doing her little dances back in COVID. And it was really, really sad, because if you look online, you can see these little TikTok dances, and they would include Kaylee. And you wouldn't have known. You wouldn't have known what was going on behind the scenes once that camera stopped running. And once you know what was going on, it turns your stomach to watch them. And there's one where little Kaylee sort of sat down in front of the camera, and this, just disgusting beast behind her is dancing. And she sort of walks up behind Kaylee and moves her head like this in front of the camera, and then steps back and carries on doing this. And I know it's neither here nor there, but her dance move, oh my God, it was just, the whole thing was just horrific. But then you see little Kaylee sort of hold her own head and sort of do this. And it's just, and then there's another one where she sort of comes up behind her and grabs her arms and starts waving her arms around to try and get her to dance. And it's just, it breaks your heart when you look at it, when you know what this little girl was going through at the time. It really does. Now at this point, even Nicola's mum, which would be Kaylee's grandmother, even she at this point had phoned social services, and they didn't do nothing. Nothing was done. It's COVID. What can we do? It was COVID. Oh, we're at home, we're working from home. What can we do? It's COVID. Just the excuse for everything, wasn't it? For 3 years. So now we come up to the 8th of August 2020. All right. It's about 1:30 in the afternoone. And this is actually caught on CCTV in their flat apartments, as I keep saying. It wasn't. It's a flat. It's a flat. And they're getting into the lift, Kaylee with her mum, Nicola. And again, it's so sad. You see them get into the lift, and Nicola is just staring. You know, when you get in a lift and you've got the mirror, she's just standing there, and she's fixing her hair, and she's fixing her clothes. And like I say, just go and have a look at her. Go and have a look at this girl. But she's fixing herself. And right beside her is this adorable little girl, just sort of looking up at her. I don't know what she would have been thinking. I don't know. Was she looking at her like for attention? Like, look at me, hold my hand. You know, maybe looking at her to see what mood she might have been in. But Nicola was oblivious to it all. And yes, she was just checking herself out in the mirror. That's all she was doing. She wasn't looking down at her daughter. And then you see them get out of the lift. She goes to the door to leave the flats, and she opens the door and carries on walking. And in my brain, it's like, this is a 3-year-old little girl. Like, how did you know she wasn't going to be dragging behind, get her hand caught in the door as it closed? The door wasn't going to hit her on her head as you closed it behind her. It just so happens that little Kaylee had managed to keep up with that and get through the door at the same time. It was no thanks to her. And apparently they were going to the park. Then you see them come back. The park baffles me. So, but why? Why bother? Why have you bothered? What? You can't. It's quite obvious you've got no time for this little girl. It's on camera. So, what was going on in the park? I'm curious. I'm curious what was behind this park visit. It's just me. It doesn't add up to me. But that's where we're told that's where they were. Okay? So, you see them come back. Again, walking through, going to the lift. She's walking ahead of her again. Going into the lift, just walking straight into the lift. And luckily, little Kaylee's catches up and gets into the lift. And in my brain, I'm just thinking, how do you know where she is? You're not even looking. And again, she's just looking up. She's just looking up at her. Maybe trying to sense her mood. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know what that little girl was thinking. It's just so sad to look at. And again, you've just got this rotten woman just staring in a mirror at herself. Look at me, I'm so... Oh, God. Right, so... the neighbour below... Now, throughout this time, the neighbour who was directly below Nicola's flat, she would hear these parties and, you know, banging. And she'd said that one time she'd heard an almighty bang. And followed by Kaylee crying. And then she heard Nicola turn around and go, oh, I'm just going to say she fell off the bed. The neighbours, I mean, how can you hear that for a start? But they could hear word for word. And they'd say that, that throughout the COVID lockdown, the banging would ramp up. Kaylee's crying would ramp up. Now, remember when I started this story, Kaylee was known as not being a baby that cried a lot. She was a very happy child. So these neighbours are hearing crying all the time. But what would quickly be followed was music getting turned right up. No red flags there, no? No red flags. So, now I'm hearing loud music. Might just phone the police maybe. You know, apparently something had been said between the neighbour and Nicola at one point, and Nicola told her to mind her business. I don't know. Maybe she was scared. I don't know. But, you know, if you were scared as a grown adult, how scared do you think that little 3-year-old was locked in that apartment with that excuse for a human being? So we're still 8th of August 2020. We're now at the evening, all right? So Nicola puts up a post saying that she's buzzing. She's buzzing. Why is she buzzing? Why, you might think? Well, it's because Callum and his friend Matthew were bringing round a bottle of vodka. You know. What, is that out of the 900 quid he nicked off you? Maybe. Anyway, the three of them that evening go out to drink on the balcony while Kaylee's left alone to play with her toys. Just so sad. About 7:30, Kaylee gets put to bed. Okay, and there's like a child gate blocking. So she's got her door, but then there's a child gate. So even if she opens a bedroom door, she can't get out into the rest of the flat. Once she's in that bedroom, she's blocked in that bedroom. So Matthew had said that Callum and Nicola obviously drinking, feeling a little bit frisky. And he wanted to go. Matthew had wanted to leave because they were getting a little bit frisky, but Callum had insisted that he stay. So he's in the living room, and Callum and Nicola decide to retire to her boudoir. And little Kaylee didn't want to go to sleep. It was 7:30. It's obviously summer. She wanted to play with her toys. She's 3 years old. She doesn't want to go to bed. She didn't want to go to sleep. And unfortunately, she was interrupting their leisure time. I don't know how to say it without being rude, but she was interrupting their time together, let's say. And Matthew said he's seen Callum come out of the bedroom and going to little Kaylee, all right, and close the door. And then next thing you know, Nicola comes out of her room and she goes in there. And we will never know exactly what happened in that bedroom. We actually still don't know exactly what happened. But by the time they'd come out of that bedroom and gone back in and done what they needed to do, little Kaylee began to vomit quite badly. And Callum, who hadn't wanted to leave up to then and had asked his friend to stay, all of a sudden, Matthew says it was like, all of a sudden he's like, right, let's go, we're going. And the two of them had to leave the apartment very quick. He thought it was a bit odd. But okay, come on then, let's go. So they leave. And this Matthew says he did return a little bit later on. Because he'd left his sunglasses, phone charger, something. He'd left something there anyway. And when he'd gone in there, into the flat, he did see little Kaylee in on her bed, but she was covered with a blanket, so he could only see her head. And he just grabbed his I think it was sunglasses, and he left. Now, Nicola said that Kaylee had been vomiting, and she'd vomited quite a few times. But then she kind of settled, and so she went to bed. She said she went to bed about 10:30-ish, around there. So we said that that's what happened, okay? And like I say, to this day, we're not 100% sure exactly what happened that evening. But like I say, both of them had gone into Kaylee's room, okay? Now, Nicola had gone to bed, but just before she'd gone to bed, her and Callum had sent little text messages to each other. And Callum, the lad who really didn't have a care at all for this little girl, all of a sudden had sent messages basically saying, is she still vomiting? Is she all right? And Nicola's like, yeah, she's okay. She's all right. She's still getting sick, but, you know, basically not really that much interest, not really talking about her daughter who's vomiting, you know, and not just a normal sickness, may I add, but they just like, right, I'm going to go to bed now. Night, love you. And Nicola goes to sleep. So little Kaylee is left in her bedroom, on her bed, on her own, while her mum goes to bed and just leaves her, alright? So we get to the 9th of August 2020, the next morning. And around about 11 a.m, Nicola calls 999. And she says, my daughter's not breathing. She's not breathing properly. She's not coming round. She's unconscious. And 999 are like, right, okay, let's go through CPR and everything else. And she's like, yeah, okay, I'm doing it. But when the paramedics turn up and they walk into the flat, they see little Kaylee lying on the floor in little blue shorts and a pink pyjama top. And they see her mum, Nicola, sat on the side of a bed, not giving her CPR, not doing anything actually. In fact, just looking sad. They didn't say she was sad, they just said she was looking sad. And when they bent down to try and give this little girl CPR, they realised quite quickly there was nothing they could do, because this little girl had been dead for hours. This little girl had died during the night, on her own, on her bedroom floor. And her mum had just left her. So when Nicola called 999, she already knew. She already knew she was dead. So the whole conversation about, yeah, I'm giving her CPR. No, she wasn't. She wasn't. She knew. She already, her lips were already gone blue. She'd been gone for a few hours. Oh, God. So Nicola and Callum are arrested very quickly. And they're arrested for willful neglect against a child, and ill treatment of a child. But then they're bailed. It's the UK, isn't it? So of course they were bailed. Of course they were. It's COVID. They were bailed. And little Kaylee's autopsy's done. Her injuries are likened to a child being hit by a car at 40 miles an hour, or falling out of an apartment 3 stories high onto a concrete floor. Now, what we found out is that little Kaylee had broken ribs, she had a fractured leg, and she had a broken sternum. And it says that these, now you might be thinking, well, that was that night. That was the night before she died. No, apparently not. Apparently they were historical injuries. And it said that they had to have come from Nicola, because Callum wasn't on the scene. These were historical injuries that had been done to this little girl. But also there were marks and bruises and abrasions on her chest. In fact, there were 68 external injuries, head to toe. This child was bruised. She had scabs, possibly from being scratched or bitten. Bruising to her scalp, a lot of fingertip bruising. And basically what had happened is on the night of the 8th that we discussed, when, now, like I say, we don't know, because they both went into that bedroom. So we don't know which one was it, both. But they beat that child so badly that her left lung collapsed. She was punched that hard in the stomach. Her left lung collapsed. And it was said that when she'd breathe in, she couldn't breathe out. And it just built and built and built. And she would have been in a lot of pain. And that's what had caused the vomiting. And it's also said that had she called 999 when her daughter was vomiting, they could have saved her. They possibly could have saved this child. But she didn't. She just texted her little boyfriend a night and went to sleep for 12 hours before she got her ass out of bed and realised, oh, what have I done? When Callum was asked by police how he felt about Kaylee's death, he said, well, it's not my child, so I'm not really affected. Now, Nicola, oh God, Nicola, she made a couple of sad TikToks because she was back on the TikTok very soon. As soon as she was bailed, there she is. She's back on TikTok. And she makes a couple of sad ones and she's there and she's like, oh God. She's looking very forlorn. She's got music playing in the background. She's like, oh God. Within 2 months of her little girl, who was 3 years old, who's been murdered, she's making her dance TikToks. She's doing makeup TikToks. Actual dance TikToks. Prancing around. She's just got all the, she's just carefree. Within 2 months of a little girl. She's out on bail for killing a little girl. And she's dancing and prancing around on TikTok. Oh, God. So we get to August 2021 and we have the trial, okay, at Birmingham Crown Court. Now, Nicola's mum, remember I said Debbie earlier when I was talking about Dan Gregory's mum. So Debbie's Nicola's mum, which is obviously little Kaylee's grandmother. She testifies against her daughter. She actually testifies to get justice for Kaylee, to get justice for her granddaughter. She said she was heartbroken. She said, you know, she was planning on buying a little uniform for her and being able to take pictures of her first day at school and stuff, and she wouldn't get the chance to do that. So, yeah, she testified. Many of their friends testified. Remember I said that Nicola, you know, she was a great friend to strangers. She loved, you know, she'd do anything for anyone else but her own daughter. And they all testified against her. The neighbours came forward. Callum's friend came forward. The babysitter came forward. Everyone came forward. And that's how we know so much. And as for Nicola and Callum, well, they just blamed each other. It wasn't me, it was him. It wasn't me, it was her. They just blamed each other. So, eventually, Nicola is found guilty of manslaughter and child cruelty. Don't ask me why it's not murder. Maybe because they couldn't decide which one of them did it. But it's the UK, isn't it? So, what do you know? Nicola gets 15 years. 15 years for manslaughter and child cruelty. And Callum got 14 years for manslaughter. 14 years. And both must only serve 2/3 of that before they'll be considered for release. 2/3. And they can be considered for release. Just, it said of Nicola that when they done sort of a IQ check on her, because obviously her defence was saying, you know, she's not the brightest spark in the box. That wasn't the right saying. God, I haven't done myself any favours there either. It's the brightest bulb. Oh, God. I'm going to stop trying to use the analogy. I'm going to stop. Is that even an analogy? Right, okay. She had low IQ, basically. Thick as two short plants. Yes. Yeah. She had low IQ. And Callum, no remorse. No remorse whatsoever. Now, which is just disgusting. This absolute... I just don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. Now, there was a GoFundMe that had been set up for little Kaylee to be able to pay for her funeral. Her grandmother, Debbie, had set that up. And as soon as it was reached, obviously the GoFundMe was taken down. But I have had a look, but the burial and where she's been buried is in a uh, undisclosed location, so I can't tell you where that is. Like, sometimes I do like to mention where that is, but I couldn't find it. Do you know what? I don't mind not being able to either. I think it gives the family that privacy as well. Look, if it's out there, I will mention it sometimes, but yeah, the fact that it's not out there, which is perfectly understandable. So yeah, that was oh God, that was Tik Tok Momster, the heartbreaking Kaylee-Jayde Priest story. And yeah, the child services struck again in lockdown. It was another lockdown horror story for a child, and just awful, just absolutely awful. And just please go away and look at the TikTok videos that she did. Oh my God! Now that you know what happened, just go and have a look. Just go and have a look, and you'll just. I just wanted to spit the camera out. I was just, oh, she's just disgusting, disgusting woman. So, thank you for joining me. Like I said, that was the heartbreaking Kaylee-Jayde Priest story. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Tuesdays are my request evening. Thursdays are stories that I like to bring to you. If you want to join my Patreon, it's patreon.com/JessRose5472. And yeah, I'm just going to have a quick chat with the guys in the live. So thank you so much for joining me. And I'll obviously be back again next Tuesday with a request. So yeah, I'm just going to have a chat with these guys in the live.